take part and speak. And also just to be aware that the meeting is being live streamed both to Facebook and to YouTube. And to my members, please when you speak to use your microphones, otherwise you'll be picked up. And with the registered speakers as well, we do have a microphone for you on the desk, and we would ask that you would please use that microphone so that A, we can hear you, and B, our audience and users listening in can hear as well. So just in terms of how planning applications are presented, they have a specific format, and so the order for each application will be that the case officer will present a report, and then any registered speakers will be able to speak in a specific order, and I believe registered speakers have already been advised that we do have a time limit of 3 minutes, and I will ask you to keep to that, and I will notify you at the end of your 3 minutes and ask you to just to finish there and then. And the members of the committee will be able to question any speaker just on points of clarity. At the conclusion of the debate on each application, members will vote and come to a decision. And also, I would also ask that, as it's really important to people that we give our full attention, that I would ask if anybody has any devices with them that are non-council, please could you, in fact, even with your laptops, but please put your phones on mute, and it would be helpful if laptops could be muted as well, simply because it can cause feedback through the system. And also could ask my members in the committee just to refrain from looking at any personal devices during the meeting. Thank you. And I will now, that's it, yes, I will move now on to the agenda. So item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. Mr. White, we've got full house in there.
Thank you, Jay. Good morning, everyone. We're going to be at a full house in today's meeting.
Thank you. And item 2 is declarations of interest. So, in accordance with code of conduct, members are invited to declare any disposable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests, including the nature and extent of such interests they may have in any items to be considered at the meeting. Anybody anything to declare? No, lovely, thank you. Items requiring urgent attention. I don't have any. Mr. White, anything that's important?
None, yeah.
Okay. So item 4 is the confirmation of the minutes. This is the meeting held on the 19th of July. They can be found on pages 1 and 2 of the agenda. Is everybody happy with our sign these as a true and accurate record? Okay, thank you. You were absent, okay.
So, Councillor, sorry, Chairman, just a minor point. Councillor D. Noise, not C. Noise.
Oh yes, we're under present. Yeah. It is, there's a typo there, so we should initial change on that one, just making sure you're correct. Oh, it hasn't got initials. Would you wish me to sign those now, Mr. White?
Do you want to have something that's okay, Jeff?
Okay, thank you. Okay, right. So item 5 is planning applications. So we were on page 3 of your agenda, and we're looking at item 0529/22/4, which is the site address is Lower Longwood Farm, Highhampton. Planning officer is Mr. Henry, so over to you, please. Thank you. Just having difficulties getting the plan up on the screen properly.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Just want to clarify first about the plan that's shown on the report. This is the site plan here, over to the left and to the other, which leads all the way down to the highway, down to here. And this is the site blown up here. Thank you very much. The proposal seeks to construct a new dwelling on the site of the now demolished agricultural building. This is the agricultural building that's no longer there. The agent states that the proposal benefits from a fallback position under Class Q, which David will explain shortly. The agent also described the proposal as a replacement dwelling. However, officers disagree with this for two reasons. Firstly, the conversion of this barn here has not taken place, so therefore there is actually no dwelling on site. So, in the present case, the applicant has said that the new proposal will represent a betterment above the existing Class Q fallback position, stating that the revised site layout has the potential to provide more comfortable relationship between the proposed and existing dwelling. The site layout provides the opportunity for greater privacy and private amenity space, and the design of the dwelling and the materials will be of a high quality, reflective and sympathetic to the rural surroundings. This is the new proposal here. In this instance, hello? In this instance, the height of the building was increased from a maximum height of 5.4 metres to 8.7 metres. The floor space has increased from 236 square metres to 274 square metres. The garden area is also significantly increased.
Which are more residential in their
One, two, three, four, sound check, sound check. So we're still back in the running. Okay, right. Is everybody back in the room? Registered speakers? No, they're not. Okay, we'll hold on to good person.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so just by way of explanation, while we wait for everybody to come in, I understand that sound wasn't working on the live stream, so we just paused proceedings just to enable the sound to do it up. And we're just waiting until 10:15 when we will restart. Thank you very much indeed for your patience. Just want to check are all registered speakers and you're back in the room, aren't any of your group listening still? Okay, so we will carry on. Okay, thank you. Right, so again, just by way of explanation, I just asked Mr. Devon to just give an explanation of the actual case in regards to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. For those members of the public who don't know who I am, I'm Devon. I'm Head of Legal Services and Monitoring Officer and the Legal Advisor to the committee this morning. I'll just outline what Class Q is, because it's not something that comes before the committee on a particular regular basis. And I'll then go on to say why that's significant, potentially in terms of the fallback position. So Class Q is a permitted development right. It enables an existing agricultural building to be converted into residential use. So it's a change of use. In connection with that change of use, limited building operations are permitted, those that are reasonably necessary to facilitate the change to a dwelling house. But the scope is limited in terms of you cannot extend the building beyond its existing envelope. A person who is looking to convert an agricultural building can include or add windows and doors and roofs that are necessary to convert the building to a dwelling house. there are other restrictions in terms of what you can do and the size of what you can do. But effectively, what I would say is complete demolition and rebuilding is not permitted. It is a partial demolition only, and it's partial only to the extent that's necessary to enable the conversion to take place. So significant structural alterations are not permitted. And as part of Class Q, the applicant is required to obtain prior approval to the change of use and the works that are necessary to convert it. So that is Class Q, and if those conditions are met, then there is a planning permission that can be implemented. It's capable of being implemented. So how does this relate to the fallback? Well, the fallback comes into play when there is an existing planning permission, and that can be a planning permission granted expressly by the local planning authority or as under the permitted development order. Now, for that existing planning permission to be a fallback position, then there has to be a likelihood, a real prospect of it being implemented. And of course, and what Mansell decides is that a mere possibility of that permission being implemented is satisfies the test. But whether there's a possibility is a matter of planning judgment. And you must be satisfied that that possibility exists. If you are satisfied that effectively the Class Q is only there as a stepping stone to the granting of a permission for something other than that would not be accepted, and is not therefore likely to be, then there is no fallback. So it all turns essentially on whether you think the Class Q permission will be implemented. And in determining whether the fallback has any weight, you must compare what is proposed with what is capable of being developed under the Class Q. So that's a question of considering the betterment that the application that is before you will bring or is over the existing Class Q. So what are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? And the analysis of those advantages and betterment is set out in the report. So I won't go into that in any more detail, but essentially, whether there is a fallback is a matter of planning judgment in terms of the likelihood of the Class Q being implemented, and the weight to be given to that fallback position is a comparison of the advantages, disadvantages of the current proposal over the Class Q. Does that assist?
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so members, you've had a presentation from Henry regarding the fifth application. Any members have any questions? Thanks, Chris.
If we could go back, please, Chairman, to the map that showed the entrance drive. I just wondered whether that is a private, on the left hand map, there's quite a long stretch there in red. Is that a private drive or is it a county drive? Public county highway?
This time here, I think it's private.
Yeah.
Sorry, the track is a private drive, I believe.
Okay, thank you. The barn that's been demolished, that was no part of the Class Q granting, is that correct?
That's correct.
You? Down in the bottom left-hand corner, that looks like a residential unit. Do you have a photograph of that one?
I don't have a photograph. That is belongs to the applicant's mother-in-law.
Right.
The farm no longer in operation, but it is still a small holding.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Anderson.
Hopefully there's no feedback. Okay. Just a couple of questions. I was quite confused before. I'm slightly more confused now that we've started. My question, which I think has this touched on as well, is I've got a couple of notes here. Where is the nearest settlement? One of the arguments we've got here is that it's not near anything. Or so where is the nearest settlement in regards to this property? Normally we'd have a big one and you'd go, it's there or somewhere.
2 kilometres to Highampton. It's approximately 2 kilometres to Highampton. Hello?
I can hear you, but I don't think Dan.
It's approximately 2 kilometres from Highampton.
Right. Okay. Just a couple. You've touched on floor size and increases, and it was just a little jot note there that was the increase. We were to consider this as a dwelling greater than 30%, or did it fit within the normal realms of a? And then I didn't think about that until you started talking on about floor space and that it would increase it by 200 and something square meters to something else.
It goes from 200 it goes from 236 square meters approximately to 274.
So it's not 30%.
It's not.
It's not more. Okay. And one question again, I don't know if you'll take this one. There's a dwelling agreed on the site, which is one below. If we look under it as being part of the queue thing, so there is planning permission on that to make that into a dwelling. Would that not? Is that not going to happen now?
The agent has confirmed that the applicants will, if it does get refused, that they will still go ahead with that.
So they'll move back to that. So that was, I thought I'd read that. Okay, thank you.
That's nice.
Sorry, could you bring your microphone a bit closer? I'm having terrible difficulty hearing. Yeah, okay. I think you said that this is now a small holding rather than a farm. And if so, how many acres has it got?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Is the applicant going to address us? I'm asking him.
Any other questions? That's not.
Sorry, it's just for clarity, please. Because I know at the moment we're discussing the possibility of a building going to, I'm going to say the shed on the right-hand side, and that under this application, the shed to the left is proposed to become a garage and workshop. Am I correct in thinking that there is effectively, should this be refused, that there is effectively 2 class queues on this site as a fallback, or is it just the one for the lower building?
The class Q just relates to this building here. If this were to be approved, it would be under a full permission.
So effectively, under the class Q, it's just that lower building with the building to the right being nothing. But under this application, we're looking at a building to the right with a workshop come garage below that.
As it is right now, this structure here is no longer there. That's the site of what's being proposed now.
But that had nothing under a class Q
That's
previously.
nothing, that's what
Thank
nothing
you.
class Q.
Okay, is everybody absolutely clear on what we're actually looking at here? But yes, we've class Q to the left, demolished building to the right. Okay, the application is to build on the building where it was demolished to the right. Anybody, any other questions? Oh, Mrs. Houselander. Yeah, perhaps you'd introduce yourself, please.
So, yes, Jacqueline Houselander, new head of West Devon. Just wanted to clarify, I think one of the issues that the case officer had was that there is a class Q fallback. And so if the application got refused, they could go through with that in terms of creating dwelling through that building. In addition, if the application is approved today, there is a potential that you could have two dwellings very close to each other, which is the concern that the case officer has raised. Although the current application proposes to convert the existing Class Q building to a garage, there is also an existing annexed stamped consent for it to be used as a dwelling in its own right as well. So there is a potential that could happen, which is one of the reasons.
Sorry, Chairman, just for the clarification. So if today's application was to be approved, the Class Q building will become a garage and workshop under this application, and that overrides the Class Q.
It's proposed as a garage workshop under this permission, but it could also alternatively resort to its class Q permission as well.
So it doesn't override the Class Q
Okay.
permission.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'm just going to look at page 12 of the report and clarify we have got this right. My understanding from reading it is that for the building on the left to use its Class Q consent, if you like, there would need to be a legal agreement drawn up. And the reason that wasn't requested is simply because there were other policy reasons for recommendation for refusal, and so didn't want to put the applicant to the extent to refuse something when, would that be correct?
Yes, but it's been previously refused and was knowledgeable to the applicants that if this we submitted that, we would need legal agreement to prevent a class Q from being converted into a building, which was not submitted to this application.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from anybody?
If I could, Chairman, if I could ask one of our legal officer, please. There's been a great play made by the board member about the Mansell case. Now, in my view, this application that we've got before us today contravenes a number of our policies within the JLP document. Surely all authorities, planning authorities, would have a different JLP document. So it's not necessarily likely that if there was a legal case brought against us or went to appeal, if it was refused, that the findings would be the same as in the Mansell case. Am I correct in thinking that?
Chairman, the fallback is simply one of the material considerations that you will take into account. Your starting point, of course, is that you have to have regard to the development plan policies, and you have to determine the application unless, in accordance with those policies, unless there are material considerations that suggest otherwise. So effectively, you have the development plan policies on one side of in the basket, and you also have potentially a fallback on the other side of the scales. And it is a question of the weight that you give to those whether you give the planning policies greater weight or you think fallback in the sense that the fallback has significant advantages over the what the Class Q permission, and it's a question of planning judgment. So, yes, Councillor Pearce is quite right that it's a question of fact in every case. The decision that you come to as to the weight that you decide to give the fallback is a matter for you, and the weight that you give may not be necessarily the same weight that another planning committee would give, because ultimately there is a range of reasonable views as to what the planning judgment is in respect of the weight to be given to that fallback. So it's a question of judgment, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, last call for Councillor Hill.
And just to Mr. Devon, if you could explain, if the applicant says that he won't exercise his right to create a second house close to, you're saying that he had an opportunity to put together a legal statement saying that he wouldn't do that. If during the course of this, they give an undertaking that they will not create a second house, and then that's conditioned in the planning commission, does that mean we can go ahead sure that there won't be a second house and that he'll do what he says he's going to do?
Chairman, it is always beholden on an applicant, irrespective of whether or not they're asked to produce a draft planning agreement during the process, and it become that the existence of that planning agreement become unilateral undertaking becomes a material consideration. You would be, if you are minded to grant permission, then you could grant permission subject to completion of a Section 106 agreement to prevent the implementation of the Class Q permission. That would be perfectly permissible. So ultimately, if that's the way you were going, that's the way I would recommend you do.
Thank you. Any questions from the group? From the next, Councillor Anders.
Just a very quick one to Mr. Devon again, on the back of what you just said. If the 106 agreement, if we decide that there will be one dwelling and one dwelling only, and obviously the idea of the 106 is to ensure that, would that be between the applicant or would that be on the property is my question? Because let's say, for example, they decided eventually to sell and move away and then somebody else moved in there. Would it be considered as a new proposition, or could they come back at a later date and say, I have to get planning permission? Is that, I'm just going to get my bill. That makes sense.
Makes sense. We can only look at the applications before us and not on sort of suspicion or what could potentially happen in that sense. Yeah.
Could they?
Chairman, if I may, as with all Section 106 agreements, if it meets the criteria, it's statutory requirements for a valid Section 106 agreement. In other words, it's in a deed and it identifies the planning enforcement authority, etc. Then, as a Section 106 agreement, the obligations in there will run with the land. So if the parties or the current landowner who enters into the agreement subsequently sells the property, then the land is still subject to the obligations in that planning agreement. It is open, of course, at some stage for a party or a person with an interest in the land to come forward and ask for us to release the obligations, but that's a separate decision and it needn't trouble you today.
That's fine. Curiosity.
Okay. Questions? No? Okay, then I will move to our registered speakers. And first we have Bailey, who I think is the applicant, I believe. If you'd like to come forward and make yourself comfortable, you just press the button on the right-hand side and turn your speaker on.
and when you've finished, I would ask if you kind enough to turn it off again. And I will press my timer when you start, and you'll have 3 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today on this application. I am Ben Bailey, the applicant, and the proposed dwelling is for me, my partner and child, and it will be our family home, alongside the rest of our family who own and live on the other side of the farm. I just wanted to say now that we have submitted a 106 agreement and a draft agreement to Devon, which you can obviously have a look at later on. So taking the 6 reasons for refusal in turn. First reason, the decision does not reflect the leading case law of the Mansell case. In that case, the judge considered that the dwellings did not need to be built for the replacement dwelling policy to be appropriate. In the Mansell case, the dwellings were granted under Class Q and the building was not converted when the council granted planning permission. This decision was challenged and the judge agreed with the council. These are direct parallels with my case. It is considered that what is proposed results in betterment when compared to the Class Q approval in terms of design and spatial relationship with the nearby dwellings. Please see the Class Q elevations. The second reason for refusal, this reason logically falls away if the above points are accepted. In addition, the application proposed would not result in additional dwellings. This can be controlled with a 106 agreement, which I'll be happy to stand to if requested, and has already been submitted. Third reason, in terms of carbon reduction, the SAC report shows the carbon and sustainable benefits of the new scheme. The ability to retrofit the barn to the same level of energy efficiency is seriously reduced when compared to a new build. The committee report has failed to acknowledge the proposed air source heat pump as shown on the plans, the highly insulated building panels, solar panels, battery storage, and the benefits of solar gain, which are also shown on the provider's SAC report. The proposal is that existing barn will be used for ancillary residential purpose. This point is accepted by the council in reason 6 of refusal. Therefore, once the permission is implemented, the building will automatically change its use from agriculture to ancillary residential use. Thus, the concern of creating a second dwelling fall away. Again, we will provide a 106 agreement, which I'm happy to go with. Number 5, the design can be subjective. I would argue that what has been designed is appropriate and reflects the rural character of the area, and the fact that it is a house is certainly much better designed than the approved Class Q scheme and will result in betterment. There's not an off-centre ridge as suggested, rather there is a lean-to element that's reflected with barns all over West Devon. The final reason, the dwelling as proposed is a 3-bed dwelling, regardless of the size of the existing barn, which will be used for ancillary residential purpose. The house will only be a 3-bed house, thus the concerns in this reason are unfounded. It would be entirely appropriate to impose a condition ensuring that the garage and workshop should not be used for primary residential purposes. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Thank you. 4 seconds in hand. Thank you very much about that. Councillor Moyes.
Yes, previous to my the question to the officer, I think he said it was now a small holding. How many acres are attached to it?
So basically, me and the family bought the farm separately. So they own one side of the track and they own 46 acres. And me and my partner own the other side of the track, which is 58 acres.
Sorry, how much?
58.
Right. And could you also tell me, the 2 buildings that we see to the left, they're the ones in your family ownership, are they?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody, any other questions? Okay, I just wanted to clarify, there's nothing that actually within the report that indicates this. There's no agricultural need, there's no agricultural needs assessment that's being submitted, that there's an agricultural need for residents. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping to like rewild the whole farm and create like nature habitats and things like that, and walks and things like that. So it hasn't been farmed for, like intensive farming for a while.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, any questions? Okay, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next it's Councillor Ben Rose from Highhampton Parish Council. Is that correct? Yes.
exactly the same to you. 3 minutes, and we'll start when you do. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'd like to thank you for letting me speak. I represent Hampton Parish Council and asked to come and speak. Yes, the Parish Council supported the application unanimously on a few things really. That Ben came to the meeting and clarified that he would be in the we felt that it could only be approved if the planning permission would be removed from the existing building. That's what we said, and Ben can confirm that he would be happy to do that. And one other thing, there's a couple of other things. One thing that we know in the village that Ben does in his business is supplying some big commercial businesses with battery backups. One's being looked at the moment. So that's what his business, a lot of his business actually is. So, you know, we feel as a parish council that there will be a benefit from removing the existing building. One of the main issues is because the track on the existing building goes so close to the building and the differences in levels. So there's that too. And the other thing that surprises me when I come here today to talk is that the planning officer doesn't know how much ground goes with the property. Talks about the fact that the nearest property is 2 kilometres away in Hampton. But there's 2 properties at the top of the drive, which are probably half a kilometre. You know, you need to come with the facts, isn't it? You know, it's no good coming here and, you know, you need to know what is actually, you need to go and visit and actually see what's going on, isn't it? I'm quite surprised on that. So anyway, that's all I'd like to say. So that's what the parish council felt anyway. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Just sit tight for a minute. There might be some questions. I certainly have one. I don't know if any other members have one.
Morning. Just some clarification. When you say the applicant supplied battery backups to the area, firstly, what does that mean? And secondly, what bearing does it have on the application?
I feel as it has a bearing because obviously in the planning officer's report, it says there's no benefit from the existing building to the new building. But like he said, that I wasn't aware that he had talked about putting an air source heat pump in. But obviously there's a lot of benefit if you're going to use that type of, you know, new products, batteries. And I wasn't even aware that these big batteries were, you know, that they are becoming a big thing. You know, you can basically use solar, because before solar panels just charged, you use the solar panels in the daylight, but now you charge the batteries and then you run them down overnight. So you've got storage. Yeah, and it's become a big thing. We've looked into it for ourselves.
Thank you. Chair, I have a question but relating to what the speaker said, but it's not necessarily for him. So shall I hold on to that?
Yeah, if you would, I would give an opportunity for questions back to the officers. Any other questions for Councillor Rose? Okay, I just wanted to ask, as Parish Council, you have your neighbourhood plan, which has been made, and your policy HMPH2, which is on page 39 of your neighbourhood plan, and in fact, which is a presumption against development outside the defined settlement boundary, which this application is. So I just wanted to really ask what Parish Council's view of because this is obviously in direct conflict with your neighbourhood plan.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it is it. Yeah, I mean, it does go against our neighbourhood plan. Looking at that, but because there was type Q planning there anyway, they've got planning permission, so they're going to be there. And it was debated quite a bit actually. It wasn't just because other applications outside the planning line have been refused, or we've put forward to refuse them. But this application, I mean, is miles away from the road, or miles, a good half a mile away from the road. And as you can see, the left-hand building has got planning permission anyway. And it was just felt that building, I've actually seen the building myself. In my opinion, a lot of these class Qs aren't, you can't make them very energy efficient because you your legal man said that you can only put windows in certain places and do certain things. On a new property, you can obviously put a lot of Celotex in the floor. You can do a lot of things to you can make it a lot more energy efficient.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that was what we come to that conclusion.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, you stated just now that the officer was wrong about the distance from other habitation. What it goes from is the centre of the nearest village, such as High Hampton. I've just measured it on here, it's 1.36 miles, the nearest settlement, proper settlement. It's not our buildings, it's a major settlement.
You have questions for Southcott?
Yeah, I just wonder why you're stating that it's, doesn't comply with, that was a wrong statement that the officer made.
If I got that slightly wrong, I do apologise. I presumed that we were talking about the nearest house, not the actual. I didn't realise. I thought we were talking about nearest houses, not the village.
Yes, it is settlement. It isn't there is property.
Right, okay.
But yes, I can understand why
Yes, because there's 3 or 4 houses at the end of the drive.
Yeah.
And the other thing, did say that obviously not knowing what acreage goes with it, and the lady was asking, surely that's relevant, isn't it?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
If there's
thank
no other
you.
questions, Councillor Rose, then we will let you go back to the gallery. Thank you. And we now actually invite the ward member, which is Councillor Kemp. You have 5 minutes, so you have the drill. I won't rehearse that with you. When you start, I'll set the timer.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. My name is Claire Kempus. I'd like to introduce myself. I am the ward member for our applicant today, and I'm honoured to stand here in support of Ben's application. Not only do I believe that his case complies with planning stipulations when seen in light of the technical details outlined by Ben and supported by his agent here, but also I will argue that issues arising from Ben's situation highlight shortcomings in the JLP in relation to planning and resilience in rural communities. The Town and Country Planning Association said recently that planning is about caring for people and communities. Key to strong communities is resilience. With shrinking public finances, many of us acknowledge that people need to be encouraged to support themselves when, for example, there are snow drifts, fallen trees, flooded ditches, collapsed walls, or other accidents. In rural areas, farmers have traditionally had the practical skills and the equipment to fix such problems, but there are very few farmers left. Ben is one of a growing number of local rural businesses who own machinery and work as contractors. He often and freely gives his time and skills and tools to solve infrastructure breakdowns. But there are other ways in which Ben supports and strengthens his community. Ben has conceptualised and developed a business park supplying office space and storage for local business. He and his wife Helen design and build floats and other items for the annual Hatherley Carnival. He helps in the construction of a new playground. And during the long and demanding adaptation of Hatherley Market to its new venue, he has remained on hand to help and advise. He's active in local sports charities, and he's regularly called on for help by our ward's town councils. Mr. Rose from High Hampton Town Council is here to verify that and can be asked about that. But one argument given for rejecting Ben's current planning application is that it is not a grand design, and so by implication will not add to the beauty of our countryside. However, people who invest in their local community often have less cash than those who invest only in themselves. Ben does not have the resources to hire expensive architects or to purchase top quality raw materials. His plans are instead practical, low key. West Devon Borough Council has identified issues with the JLP where rural businesses are not supported by the plan. I would like to argue that Ben is the kind of small-scale rural businessman who's being driven out of the area.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of questions, but I will see if others anything they wish to raise first. No, okay. I will. Oh, okay, right, you go ahead.
Good morning, Councillor Camp. I was just interested in your reasoning for calling this before committee. It's quite a comprehensive list. I just wondered where you obtained all your information from.
Perhaps you could outline to me which pieces you were talking about?
All of them.
The information I got for responding was in discussion with my resident, with the applicant and with his agent.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, I had a quick question because you referred to the master in your reason to call it. And so thinking about that, are you able to explain why this application does demonstrate betterment in terms of material planning grounds, taking into account the planning officer's broader reasons for recommending refusal?
Do I have the ability to call on the agent to be able to outline the definitions of
No,
this?
I'm sorry, Councillor Kent, this is a question to you as board member because you've described it in your reason for calling, so I'd expect you to understood.
Fine. Could you repeat the question?
The question was, is that thinking about the Mansell case, okay, could you able to explain why this application demonstrates betterment in material planning reasons, taking into account the planning officer's broader reasons for recommending refusal?
Personally, I can't, I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's absolutely fine. I wasn't sure if you would be able to, but I needed to ask the question because you included it in your reasons. Anybody, any other questions? No. Okay, thank you very much indeed, Councillor. So I will just ask if anybody has any final questions for the planning officer. I move the recommendation going to debate. Councillor Spudge.
Thank you, Chair. Discuss this in terms of the type of class it is and the other management. It seems like, in my limited experience, it seems unusual we haven't discussed things like the significant increase in building height and surface area. Is it fair to say that because there aren't anyone living in the vicinity would be affected by visual impact of the building? Because 8.5 metres, was it? That's 36 square meters.
8.7.
Sorry, I can't hear.
8.7 metres maximum height.
So is there any impact on anyone because of the significant massive?
There's no residential with regard to separation distance.
Just family members who obviously agree. Thank you.
There is not the visual impact of the increase across the landscape.
That's nice.
Sorry, could we have the photograph of the proposed dwelling back again, or the scheme? So the thing on the side is sheet, is it?
This building here.
Can't hear you. The side of the building is sheet metal.
A cladding, yes. It's zinc cladding.
Anybody, any other questions? That's right.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the areas covered in brown, to me, that would be cedar or something like that. Can you tell me what material that is there?
It's some kind of timber.
So it's probably a hardwood cladding of some sort.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Just looking in the report to see that specifically what the cladding was. On page 11, on the design and landscape, everything is actually exactly. Looks about proposed design and proposed link cladding. Recess balcony, numerous.
Western with cedar chair.
Right, thank you.
Chair, can I ask a quick question? Sorry, is it from the how this like the picture look, is the material used for the side of the house the same as the material on the roof?
Yes.
Yeah. Just looking at the top left picture and the bottom right picture, that's just how it appears. Thank you.
That's most, sorry, I think I'm being totally unintelligent here, but I can't understand why we've got a pitch and yet the other two are flat. Well, I don't understand.
It's just because you're looking at it frontally, you don't get depth on the picture. If it was a 3D model, you'd probably see the depth more, but you can see it once it turns around to the side elevations.
If you look at it, it's actually like the bottom left, and then you go to top left, it swivels it around, so it's that side piece, and then swivels around again, and then on the back. Bottom right. Is it you're having difficulty in seeing the perspective, yeah?
Yes,
Yes.
You know, the top one on the left and the bottom, they're flat, and I can't understand why the other two are apex.
So effectively, the two that have got what appear to be flat, you're actually looking at the ridge lines. So imagine if if you had a box and you looked at it from this angle, it would have the pitch roof. If you looked at it from this angle, you would be seeing the roof as sort of you'd seen the roof that you're so effectively on the top one, the roof that you're seeing is actually going away from you because it's actually hipped as the bottom picture shows you.
I'll give up.
Yeah. I do need to be sure that you understand exactly what you're looking at. So, yeah. Well, you need to do it in public, please. So, can you put your microphone on? Thank you.
Of course. So from the end, the building looks like that.
Yeah.
Top left picture, bottom right picture, front of the building, or the side of the building's there, the roof's there. Where you're sitting, it just looks like a big rectangle. Because they made out of the same materials.
Okay. I think probably it's the materials that's actually causing the problem because you can't see the difference, if you like, between the side of the building and the roof because it's the same material. That's probably not helping. Oh, I see. Sorry, I get it. Yeah.
Okay, you happy now? That's happy to everything. Yes. Okay. Right, thank you. Anybody else? Any final questions? No. Okay, I will move the recommendation and just for explanation, because I didn't do it right at the start, so I forgot that we move the recommendation as described in the author's report, and this allows it to go into debate. So it is not a sort of presentation of any decision. So I've moved the officer's recommendation and I've got a page number on page 4, which is a recommendation for refusal. Is there a seconder, please?
I would second, Chairman.
Thank you, members. We are now in debate. Councillor Spetke.
Thank you, Chair. I'm yet to be determined one way or the other on this application. I mean, it's important to say first things first that rural communities are built on the shoulders of people who put cars out the road, grip the roads, clear snow, and are actively members of their community. Councillor Kemp's presentation certainly highlights that. What I'm struggling with and would like to be convinced on is that whilst it doesn't seem to affect anyone, and there are lots of reasons why it doesn't seem like a bad idea, material planning reasons are why we're here, aren't they? And I'm struggling with the fact that it seems to fall away in terms of its distance from the settlement boundary. The fact that we're talking about replacing a dwelling which hasn't been built and yet to be convinced on that.
Councillor Ennis.
Following on Councillor Spedley here, my brain's going, if we were to look at this as a new proposal, it wouldn't have got off the mark. It got to the stage where it was designated that it would be residential on a technicality, as in the class Q. Having said that, once that has taken place and we then decide that it is residential, we then have to make the decision, is the deed proposed in front of us better than the class Q? That's how I see it. Technically, I wouldn't have even considered this, but I do get the fact that now, for no reason, for a legal loophole, there it is residential, which is the better of the residential. That's how I see it. Some hints very much in this one, to be honest. Yeah, that's my thought. So again, maybe a little bit more convincing one way or the other on this one.
Thank you. Councillor Hale.
Would one aspect of betterment be that the proposed new build would be very heavily insulated and therefore matching up with some of our really desperate concern about improving the insulation quality of properties and the way we're building properties? Really, there's only so much you can do with the barn, whereas with the new build, you can start from basics and get it right. Yes, I would have hoped that if someone wanted to do a total new built house, that it would have looked more like a house rather than cladding in sheet, whatever it is.
That's very much.
Thank you, Chair. As others have already stated, communities are built on the members of that community. And it has also been recognised that there are areas of the JLP which do not support applications such as this. That said, they are the policies that we have to work with. And as such, this does not meet those policies. Therefore, I will be supporting the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Mott has taken some of the words out of my mouth. I'm really struggling with this application, and because it goes against a number of policies in the JLP, and whether we like much in the JLP or we don't, that is a legal document we have to work to. I'm also concerned that the parish council decided to go against their own legal neighbourhood plan. We know how important those are in the eyes of planning inspectors, and there have been recent cases whereby the neighbourhood plan has been very important. I take on board the points raised by, or points made by, the ward member, and it is very difficult, but we have to work to the JLP. And although when the JLP was put together, there were certain aspects of rural policy which did match what's come forward now in the last few years. So, although the reviews taking place, they won't be ready for another couple of years at least. I do have concerns about the design myself, let alone the aspects of affordability. In my view, it's grim.
That's all I can say. So unfortunately, I will be supporting the planning officer's recommendation.
So that gives that.
Thank you, Chair. My concern on this one is it doesn't accord with the neighbourhood plan, which is an important document, a document which has been put together and is to me most important. And it is also contrary, as the planning officer said, to sections of the joint local plan. I disagree, I think, on design with on this one. I think the joint local plan encourages innovative designs, and I think this does, to me, fall within it. But I know I'm in the minority on that one. But in view of what I've heard here, I feel I would support the office. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I mean, just summarising what I've heard here, just to kind of, there's obviously various views and just picking up the material issues so that concerns expressed about distance from settlement and being a replacement building, but one that's not actually rebuilt. So it's a new proposal. Residents on basis of the technicality class Q technicality is the proposed better class Q, and that's key thing here, everything to do with betterment. Also, vendors are talking about the design and talking about the conflict with JLP policies as to whether they want to support it or not. So if anybody has anything different to add to that, please say. If not, we will take this to the vote, and as I say, the officer's recommendation is for refusal, and we have the reasons for refusal are outlined in the agenda. So all those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show.
That's 8 in favour of refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Against?
With 2 against. Thank you, Chair.
Any abstentions?
No abstentions. Thank you, Chair.
So that is refused. So thank you very much indeed for your time and for coming and making the presentation this morning. It is very, very helpful to us in helping us with our deliberations. Thank you. Okay, we'll just do a quick whistle stop for a second.
The board member got the reasons for refusal from the agent.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes. I thought I did it politely though, didn't I?
Just give the planning officer a minute just to get her details up on the screen so you can see the plans.
The agent should know better too. No, I mean, you know, the second profile building
You know, just imagine what people would say, although it's away from the road, you know, the stick we would get from residents in the area and allowing that through anyway. Yeah, yeah. I think at the end, ask the chairman, I want to bring up about the, because there were no reasons given for the licensing meeting, while they were made, so there's no reason. Right, okay. What's selling, but you saw my email to Kathy, did you? Yeah. I mean, I thought it was appalling. You know, we've got members of the public waiting, and you know, there was no apology, not to me, as chair, anyway. There's a lot of spam. Sure. There's a lot of spam. Was it? Right. I was panicking that we wouldn't be core and it would just go through by default. Oh, right. Sarah. Yes. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much. That's right. I know. You know, this was declined. I mean, the site visit was offered. But it was not, excuse me, it wasn't needed. It would have been, you know, really good assistance at it. Yes, yes, definitely.
Just wanted to check.
Okay, everybody, sorry about the delay. We've kind of got the report up and running now. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is application 2334/22/householder application, and it's relating to one footage Buckland Monocorum, and the case officer is Ms. Hutton. So over to you. Thank you. Thank you. The site of Wonder Village is situated in Buckland Monocorum Village. This is a household application for a garden home office with shed, which is going to replace an old shed previously situated on the site, but was unfortunately damaged within the recent storms earlier in the year. This is the site location plan of the application, and the proposed home office and shed will be situated to the bottom right-hand corner of the site, which is around here. At the end of the garden of the listed building. Here we have an aerial view of the application site. We can see here that it is this one here. Here we can see that the site is off the main road, which leads into Buckland Monocorum. However, where the home office and shed will sit, it will be at the end of the garden. Which is surrounded by domestic garden space and surrounding properties, and there is a nursery to the rear. Here we have the proposed elevations and floor plan. The home office and shed will consist of a simple grey wooden structure with wooden doors and windows. The proposed plan of the structure highlights the simpleness of the proposal, and as you can see, includes the shed and office space. Here I have 4 slides on the photos from my site visit. Photo number 1 is the site area taken from the top of the
access stairs from the listed building. The office will go to the rear of the garden, here where the bed of nettles can be seen. We can see that the main garden area is flat and surrounded by mature trees and hedges. Photo 2 is the depiction of the development site to the back of the listed building, which is seen in white. On this slide, on photo 3, this is a view of the development area standing flush against the rear wall of the listed building. As you can see, these are the access stairs to the main garden area, meaning that the office will not actually be visible from the floor of the building, ground floor of the building, sorry. And photo 4 is the photo of the development site where the home office and shed will be positioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions? Oh, right, okay. I still presume you're the council, I'm going to start that way and head up. So Councillor Enders, then Secretary, and Councillor Higgins.
I see this question. Had this not been a member of staff, would it have gone normally through delegation? We wouldn't normally brought this to committee, am I correct? Or would it have come before us anyway?
That is correct. It would have come to committee if it hadn't been a member of staff.
Okay, would have been agreed.
But that must be clear that we must be pleased, yes, okay, so we determine it in line with our policy. Councillor Swaffy.
Thank you. My only question is a point of clarification. On the slides where you mentioned the listed building, that is the property attached to the site.
Yes, it is. Yeah, the host dwelling.
That's nice.
There was a photograph and it looked as if the current building was still there. Is that right, or is that another building?
If I go back to
Yeah.
photo 1, where the proposed office will go, it's actually right at the back where you can see the bed of nettles right in the rear.
Yeah, I realised that. But what is that building? Is that the one that should have been, we were told, fallen down or whatever?
No, so there was an additional building on that site, and there is the other buildings that are present there already. But that's not part of the application. The application is just for the rear replacement shed.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. When I saw these photographs in the report, I thought that building that's on the right-hand side in photograph 1 was the one that had been damaged by the storm. Is that not so?
No, that's not so. No.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Jeffrey? Right, we don't have any registered speakers for this particular application. So I will move straight to the recommendation, which is page 18 on your agenda, and that is for, so I'll move that is for conditional approval. Could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, be now debate. If you wish to speak. That's Chris.
I think that the new building will be even more. The new building will even be more unvisible. I can't think of the word I'm looking for there. With that one that's there, because I when I saw the photographs in the plans that came through, I thought that was a building that had been damaged and would be removed. Obviously, that is staying there, so the other building is behind that, which makes it even more secluded. So I don't have a problem with this application. So I support the officer's recommendation.
That's nice.
Under conditions, it says external lighting. Presumably, that means there won't be any external lighting.
Yes, that's right.
Anybody else? Okay, then we will go to the vote on this one then. So all those in favour of the officer recommendation of approval, please show.
That's 10 unanimous. Thank you, Chair.
So that is carried. Thank you. Right. So we will now move on to, thank you very much, Mr. Tom, appreciate it. Sorry, appreciate that. Item 6 on page 23 of your agenda papers, which is the planning appeals update. And I will, so Mr. Fastland, I think, please.
The second appeal, which is the 3 appeals withdrawn, so the only one relevant to discuss is the Burrington Estates appeal, which the committee refused quite a while ago now, and the inspector has agreed with your refusal and dismissed the appeal. Quite interestingly, reference was made in the statement to the neighbourhood plan policies in particular, which is really good, and the use of the word feasible. And the inspector went to great length to look at the definition, or as a council, we offered definition of feasible as a standard dictionary definition, and the inspector picked up on that and used that and said that whilst the applicant had suggested that the use of the B road was an either or, actually the policy indicated that there needed to be proven that the B road could not provide an entrance before the Woolacombe Road entrance, which is what was in the applicant's and the application, could be considered to be inappropriate, whereas the applicant knew that it was an either or. Whereas the inspector was very, very clear that she felt that there hadn't been sufficient justification provided by the applicant as to why that top end, the northern entrance, couldn't be used. And so that overrode any of the other issues that have been put forward by the applicant. One other thing that she did mention, which I think is quite helpful, is quite useful to know, and possibly something which we might at some point want to debate, that the neighbourhood plan policy referred to the fact that you could install an access in association with Bowling Green, which is the development next door, and the applicant's response to that during the application process, in fact, and that's the appeal, was that involved third-party land. They just didn't have any control over it to provide a visibility display. The inspector didn't think that was an issue, and because it's in the neighbourhood plan, that should have been something that should have been taken into account. The only thing I would say about that is very difficult for third-party land to be able to, if somebody knows that they've got the ability for that land to be part of the visibility display, it certainly becomes very expensive. So it is an issue, but the inspector was very clear that wasn't a barrier as far as she was concerned. Yeah. So that was an interesting result. Good from the council's perspective, though, because it means that I think the way that how many appeal decisions we have lost and won, what have you, these are potentially being designated, but by the council having won this appeal, it takes us further away from that position. So that's positive. That's this.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, I mean, I think this result of this appeal shows the importance of good neighbourhood plans. And I mean, the neighbourhood plan indicated that the entrance should be by the Bowling Green entrance. And this is why the inspector took it on board. I was really pleased about this because I know it was very difficult for the committee at the time, and I, knowing the area and what's gone on there over the years, to me it was just horrendous what the developers were trying to do in the lane that they were bringing this out on, which was there's a lot of traffic in the summer when people are going down to Weir Quay. So, I'm really pleased that we got the result on this one. Thank you for that.
Anybody any questions on appeals? No. Okay, thank you. So that then leads us on to the next item, which is the update on undetermined major applications. as usual, this is just, anybody has any questions, this is on the sort of progress rather than the merits of an application. So, and we usually just simply take any questions from the committee rather than, so, Councillor Ratcliffe, your question.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do. And as I understand it, the first one with this, which is War Grading Centre in Bolton, it's had a really checkered history. It's been going for an awful long time, but I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that the applications have now been registered and it is proceeding formally towards a decision. Am I correct in doing that? The applicant seems to be very happy with what's going on. I just want to be sure that that was the same opinion about this.
Yes, so there was originally one application on the site which has been registered and valid for quite a long time. But the issue with the site was that actually there were two parts of the site and one. So it's still two separate applications, and the other application and the officer dealing with it is going to consider them both at the same time, such that the whole site is considered. So one application will be overdue, and the other one hopefully will be within time. But yes, that's what's happening.
Can I just say then on this one, I think it's much more tidy having one red line around some sites because that all those various elements into
just being with your Councillor Ratcliffe, because you go into merits.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to say that, so as I understand, it will be a red the whole have one.
As far as I'm aware, no. There are two separate red lines still, but next to each other. It's supposed to not be one here because there's still two planning applications. So each application will have a red line area, and that will, but they are adjacent to each other. In considering the applications, the officer will obviously have a view about all of them. There may be an issue with regard to contributions that come out of each of those sites, which will come out as I'm sure when the application comes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm very relieved to see that the toboggan run has been withdrawn. Could somebody tell me where we are with the Plymouth Road section 106 agreement?
Mr. Devon, please.
Yes. Yes, Chairman. We are, I think, virtually there. Unfortunately, due to the death of one of the parties, there is a slight delay, but ultimately, once that's been resolved, then I'll be making arrangements for a briefing.
Any questions on the majors? Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Specialist.
Sorry, Chair, I was slightly late. An assumption on my part, I assume that Hazelden House would just be moved to the next meeting. Is that just a matter of the calendar, or is there any reason why it's not here with us?
Yeah, no, the reason the Hazelden application has not gone to the next meeting is the applicant has asked if we can look at some of the reasons for refusal to see if there's any way that we can find some of them. And so a meeting is due to happen after next for us to.
So it'll come back in the fullness of time if it's called in. Lovely, thank you. So item 8, then we move on to the planning performance indicators on page 27 and 28 of your agenda. And again, open to time, please.
Firstly, I apologise for the 40 square box, which is in one corner of the further major applications table. It should be there, but it does tell you that it's the line, the black line, if you like, is at 75%. So in terms of majors, obviously a bit of a dip in the last year, but most of this year, until now, we've been above the target. So first quarter, but in the last quarter, we're really moving to move up. So that's really positive. With regard to non-major applications with extensions again, but still within the with it at a level with the line, which is where we have been concerned. We discussing it in the pack, we were wondering why that was happening. I think it was when there's a gap between an employee leaving and another one arriving, and so therefore there was a slight shortage in the number of staff. Obviously, in the most recent also better. In terms of workload, unfortunately, the graph finishes June. Your question whether they're tied up until September, but because it's only just got to September, that quarter doesn't actually get formally measured until probably mid-October. So we're hoping for that. But things are looking reasonably good in terms of workload as well, compared with the other 2 years going graph. The only other issue, obviously, was the enforcement cases. So, in looking at the could look at the 3 pie charts and think graphs and think that actually we're not closing enough cases. But I think if you look at the last 2 quarters on the first graph, the number of enforcement cases received is going up, and if you look at the last graph, the outstanding is going up. So I think we've had a lot of cases and not managed to close all of them. But again, there was a blip about 2 or 3 months ago, which with staff leaving, and so that may explain the lower number of enforcement cases closed. Taking questions.
Any questions, members?
Mr. Chairman, the number of enforcement cases received, is this from the general public or from parish councils? Do you have any idea of that?
I don't have an idea, but it would be the whole number of enforcement cases we received.
There's quite a uplift in the number coming in, so yeah, so I just wondering whether people are out and about now after COVID and noticing things.
Well, be that, yeah.
Anybody, any other questions? That's especially.
Sorry, just a general one, but I suspect I can talk this house right now.
If it's about a specific case, then leave it until after the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Anything else? No, lovely. Well, in that case, thank you everybody for your time, for your attendance, and your contributions. It's ever very much appreciated. And I will officially close the meeting at 25 to